Hi there, I want to take you through a short video on some of the decision-making tools that you can use actively in your business to help improve performance. So often in business we struggle making decisions. We don't do them in a rational, reasonable way. We make decisions on the run and on the cuff. If you want to put a bit more discipline into your decision-making, the following tools will really help you to do that. And we'll just go through them pretty quickly. So really the purpose of today's little webinar is to explore different aspects of decision making and then understand how we can be more effective at that. For me, the definition of decision making is the process of selecting a course of action from among alternative scenarios. And I think that's the crux of it, is that it's about selecting a course of action. And sometimes we just need some tools, sometimes a little bit of objective analysis to help us make a better job of selecting that course of action, because there's lots of alternatives the way we can do things, and often we race to them. So let's just work through some simple decision-making tools. The first one is the PARETO rule, and it's the 80-20 rule. It really uses your gut feel and your intuition, and the PARETO rule says that 80% of your issues are caused by 20% of your people, or 20% of your clients generate 80% of your profit, those sorts of things. Now, true Pareto, it doesn't have to add up to 100. It could be 6% of your clients generate 93% of your, or 90% or 80% of your profits. It doesn't have to add up. And the way we're going to use it is to say, really, if I look at a particular issue and I think about a particular issue, what's the three things that we need to do in order to progress it, or what's the one key thing? So it's about sifting all the things out and saying, okay, if I look at everything here, what are the three things I need to do? So it's a really simple tool. Okay. Another tool for sort of ranking up opportunities is to look at, you've got a heap of actions or choices you've got to make. You can say, okay, what things must I do? What should we do? What could we do? So it's just that simple: must, should, could. So, it's a great way to rank priorities and put priorities around actions to help you select the ones that you must do. Okay. Again, uses your intuition and your gut feel. Third tool is what we call gap analysis. A really powerful tool. Basically what you do is you brainstorm a series of factors, and then you score those factors from where you are now to where you need to be. Now in this example here, we've shown you two ways of doing that. One way is a graphic way, where you put a scale in place and you mark where you are now and where you'd like to be on it. The other is you put numbers down columns. You wouldn't do both, you'd only do one. So what we're looking at is the factors that have the biggest gaps. Okay. Now just remember, with all this stuff, you don't necessarily always have to be the top score. Now you may notice we've used the scale. We used a -5 to +5 scale, where -5 is really low, +5 is really high, and 0 is the average. The reason we use that is because it makes you think about the score. It's an unusual scale for most people to use, and you actually have to think about it, rather than a 0 to 10 scale where you just go, it's a 7, it's a 3, whatever. This one you actually have to think about it. Okay, so use gap analysis as a tool. Where are we now? Where do we need to be? Pick the ones with the biggest gap between the target and the current score. Okay. Methodology: select your factors, score for the now, score for the where, calculate the gaps, pick the biggest gaps, and then do some action plans. All right, so great way to do. Just remember, it's only a tool, so it's not infallible. Really, you're making up numbers or creating numbers, so I call it subjective objectivity. But it's better than just pulling stuff out of the hat. At least you've had to think about things. For more complex issues, the gap analysis is a better alternative to the Pareto analysis and must, should, could. And if you're not happy with the score, then work out your action plans to move your score higher. So, if you want to change the scores, that's okay, but think about why that's different. So, we've given you a workbook for this little webinar. So, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to press pause in just a second and do this exercise. So, turn to the gap exercise. pick an issue that's critical, and the example here is, brainstorm the key factors that are critical to the performance of your current job or of your team or something else. So think of something that's relevant. If not, create something. Do the gap analysis, think about what actions you would take, and then summarize it into a one-page plan. That would be what I would be doing. So press pause. When you're ready to go again, press play. Okay, welcome back. I hope that that made a little bit of sense for you. It's a really powerful tool, really easy to use. A similar tool is what we call the decision matrix, and its decision matrix is good. So where you've got a range of alternatives that you want to compare. All right, so you might be comparing a series of options. Maybe it's for equipment or people. The one I use commonly is people. So when we're recruiting, I get clients to set up a decision matrix for all their people, but you may just use it to score and rank your staff. So you may assess your staff using a decision matrix. So a really powerful tool. So what you do is you brainstorm the criteria. Okay, so you think about the problem you're trying to look at. What are the opportunities we're looking at? What are the alternatives? What are the key criteria that we need to use to make a decision in this space? Okay. We then come up with a weighting. So the simplest way to do that weighting is to say, all the weights need to add up to 100. Okay, so we're basically weighting everything out of 100. Now, there's 4 criteria in this case. If they were equally weighted, they'd all be a score of 25. But we've said profit is rates higher, and so does speed, and brand rates lower. Okay, so we put different weightings on them. Then what you do is for each of your alternatives, you score across the row, and you score out of the weighting. So for profit, we go across. For option 1, we've given it 15 out of 30. Option 2, 25 out of 30, etc. In sales, option 1 was 12 out of 25 and 15 out of 25. Okay. Now, you then simply add up your options. Add up your scores, and pick the alternative with the highest score. So the process: brainstorm your options, select your decision-making criteria, determine the appropriate weightings for each criteria, score each option by going across the rows, total the scores, and then select your top option. Okay. Now, a couple of tips. Take the time to select your decision-making criteria. So make sure you're taking plenty of time to sort out your decision-making criteria. Then spend some time on your weighting. Now, I find too many people spend too little time discussing the criteria that we're going to use to make a decision. We talk about the outcome, we talk about the scores, but we don't talk enough about the criteria. Do we have the right criteria? Then have we weighted them correctly? Because they can really cause you some challenges. So score across the rows, not down the columns. Now, if your top score is not the preferred option, then look at your criteria and your weightings. What do we have wrong here? Okay, so your gut feel is telling you it's the wrong option. Change it. Okay, so they're really some really quick, powerful tools to help you with decision making. So in summary, we've got the PARETO analysis, the 80-20 rule. Got must, should, could, which is a great tool for prioritizing thing. We've got gap analysis there, so you can do a gap analysis and the steps there, and then lastly you can do a decision matrix. So they're the great tools there. These examples and exercises in the workbook for you to complete. So take the time to work those through. Steps from here: practice, practice, practice. So these tools don't get used and aren't of any use to if you don't practice them. So take the time to use them. Even if you don't think you need to use them, because when you do want to use them for a big problem, then you'll be fluid in how you use them and everything else. If you've got any questions or any problems, happy to help out. Just give me a call or flick me an email. More than happy to help you out. All right. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye.